Trump's 2025 global tariff war, China, Europe and more. Augusta 1 deadline looms. Hold on to your hats. America's trade policy has never looked so bold, far-reaching or divisive. With President Trump back in office, the United States has plunged the world into a trade war of unprecedented scale, threatening tariffs on both trusted allies and historic rivals alike. His aggressive tactics are shaking the foundations of international commerce, raising tough questions about who will really pay the price, and whether these moves will help or hinder American businesses and consumers in the long run. But here's where things get truly controversial. Not everyone agrees this gamble will pay off. Let's break down where things stand, clarify the stakes, and highlight the points most people overlook. The global tariff landscape. Who's on the hook? President Trump's latest round of tariffs, some potentially reaching 50%, are set to kick in on August 1st. These new taxes add to a patchwork of import duties, some already active, others under negotiation or review. Here's a quick breakdown. See which of these categories your country of interest falls into. 22 countries facing renewed tariff threats. A fresh warning shot has been fired at the likes of Mexico, Canada, South Korea, India, Thailand, Malaysia, Brazil, and others. These nations could see sharp tariff hikes unless new deals are struck soon. For example, products from Mexico and Canada not covered by the existing USMCA free trade agreement may soon face extra costs at the border, possibly up to 35%. Trump's camp argues these moves will pressure foreign producers to shift manufacturing to the United States and stem problems like fentanyl trafficking. But can tariffs really solve such complex issues? That's the debate. 32 countries with reciprocal tariffs on pause. A number of countries, including China. With China, a 30% tariff on imports was agreed as a stopgap to de-escalate the back-and-forth penalty increases. But pay attention. Despite this relative peace, if further agreements falter, tariffs could soar again, potentially exceeding 145% as happened in the spring. Both sides have a lot to lose, and the next move could shape global trade for years. 32 countries have preliminary deals. After initial threats, some major economies, including Germany, Japan, Vietnam, Britain, most of the EU, the Philippines, Indonesia, and others, have reached provisional agreements. What does this mean? For these nations, the US has agreed to set tariffs at more manageable levels, often around 15 to 20%, in exchange for commitments like easier market access for American goods or, as in Japan's agreement, major investment pledges in the US economy. For products using lots of Chinese or Russian materials, though, the penalties can be higher, adding complexity for global manufacturers. 107 countries now pay a baseline tariff. Most other countries, from Singapore, Australia, and Saudi Arabia to Ukraine, Russia, and even North Korea, now face a 10% baseline tariff on goods sent to the US. These are the default terms unless stronger measures are imposed or new deals are struck. How Trump's tariffs are structured and why they matter. Trump's trade playbook mixes broad, country-wide tariffs with targeted, sector-specific measures. Take steel and aluminum, for instance. Tariffs here hit about 20% and 50%, respectively, with Canada being a key supplier of both to the US. New proposals also target copper, semiconductors, lumber, aircraft, pharmaceuticals, and even critical minerals like rare earths, of which China is the world's biggest supplier. The idea? Protect American industries deemed vital for national security, using Section 232 of US law as a justification. One especially notable approach: reciprocal tariffs. If another country charges high duties on American goods, Trump says the US will match or exceed them. The logic is simple, but the execution? Far more complicated. especially with thousands of products moving back and forth daily. A brief timeline of escalation. In February, Trump slapped a sweeping 25% tax on all imports from Canada and Mexico, not covered by the USMCA, challenging these neighbors to help fight the drug trade or face economic pain. After fierce criticism at home and abroad, he softened the blow by exempting USMCA-covered items. But the threat isn't off the table. With China, a back-and-forth tariff hike led to tit-for-tat increases, paused, for now, at 30%, but previously peaking at 145%. Meanwhile, Japan, the EU, the UK, and several Southeast Asian countries have struck early deals, limiting rates and promising more US market access. Sector-specific actions still in play. In tandem with countrywide tariffs, Trump has rolled out or announced plans for targeted duties. Here are key sectors affected. Steel and aluminum. Hefty tariffs with a focus on security and jobs. Automobiles and parts. Nearly half the cars sold in the US are imported. These tariffs may hit consumers hardest. Pharmaceuticals. China and India produce much of America's medication supply, raising concerns about prices and availability. Semiconductors, copper, lumber, aircraft, and even consumer drones. Nearly every aspect of the modern high-tech economy is affected. Who pays and who wins? Here's the part most people miss. Tariff costs are paid up front by American companies that import foreign goods, not by overseas producers. The administration argues foreign firms will eat the costs by cutting prices. But most economists believe businesses and, eventually, US consumers will see higher prices for electronics, cars, clothes, and more. Where do you stand? Does this bold trade stance risk triggering inflation and market turmoil? Or is it a brave stand against unfair trade practices and foreign overreach? And this is the part that sparks endless debate. Are higher tariffs an effective way to protect American jobs and security, or do they just make life more expensive for everyday Americans? Have strong opinions or questions on who's benefiting or hurting from this new era of tariffs. Do you think these policies are a long overdue correction or an unnecessary gamble with the global economy? Let's hear your thoughts below. Should tariffs be used as weapons for negotiations, or is it time to find new, less disruptive tools for global trade? Trump confirms tariff deadline. No extension. A bold declaration has sent shockwaves through the world of international trade. President Donald Trump has unequivocally stated that the Friday deadline for reactivating his controversial reciprocal tariffs will stand firm and will not be moved. In a spirited post on Truth Social early Wednesday morning, Trump emphasized, "The August 1st deadline is the August 1st deadline. It stands strong and will not be extended." A big day for America. This statement comes on the heels of another announcement in which the president detailed an additional 25% tariff on Indian imports and introduced a punitive fee against foreign purchases of Russian military equipment and energy products. It is worth noting in this dramatic series of events that Trump had previously promised not to alter the tariff deadline. Yet, following an initial decision in early April to impose a 10% blanket tariff globally, along with even higher rates of up to 50% on select countries, he later temporarily shelved the SPIPA tariffs for a 90-day period. This pause was intended to mitigate the ensuing panic among investors and unsettle global markets, with the higher rates expected to resume on July 9th. However, in a surprising twist, 2 days prior to the original deadline, Trump signed an executive order postponing the restart date to August the 1st. In the weeks leading up to this reset, the president dispatched individual letters to over 24 world leaders, detailing the new import tax rates that would affect their country's exports into the United States starting in August. While many of the announced rates were similar to those originally set on April 2, despite previous criticisms from economists regarding the formula used, some tariffs saw dramatic increases. For example, Brazil's duty surged from 10% to a staggering 50%, a measure reportedly linked to grievances over the country's treatment of its former president, Jair Bolsonaro. In separate correspondences, Trump also revealed plans to levy a 35% tariff on Canadian goods and a 30% tariff on Mexican products. And this is the part most people miss. On Monday, Trump hinted at the possibility of raising the global baseline tariff rate further, potentially to 15% or even 20%. The administration insists that these new tariffs are not just about revenue generation, despite the fact that tariffs are ultimately paid by the importers, but are also intended to serve as a strategic bargaining chip in broader trade negotiations. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent remarked on Tuesday that these snapback tariffs are tolerable for a brief period, be it days or weeks, as long as they... His comments suggest that the temporary nature of these measures is designed to encourage countries to engage in good faith discussions. But here's where it gets controversial. Some major trading partners, including Japan and the European Union, have successfully negotiated reduced US tariff rates ahead of the impending deadline as part of preliminary trade agreements with the Trump administration. Do you believe these measures will effectively level the playing field in international trade? Or are they merely a high-stakes negotiation tactic that risks long-term economic fallout? Share your thoughts and join the debate in the comments below.